If you're detained in Cameroon, as Charles was in 2004, don't expect to be charged or brought to trial. You can expect to be beaten, ill-treated and kept in foul conditions. Stripped naked, you will be housed in a dark, airless, overcrowded cell with no toilet. The guards may jokingly call your daily excursions from your cell for a beating a petit café, a little morning coffee. That may include beatings with truncheons, machetes, rifle butts on the soles of your feet. You may be tortured with electricity or suspended in some excruciating position. If you're a woman, your torture will almost certainly include rape. The Foundation says it's simply time that the Home Office stopped dismissing the bulk of asylum claims from Cameroon as unfounded. And that's what we're asking the Home Office to consider now. Charles's claim, we believe, is not unfounded. Charles is at very serious risk of torture, detention, abuse and even death if he's sent home. We demand now that the Home Office reconsiders his claim for asylum properly, seriously and sympathetically, recognising the roots that he's put down in Glasgow and the support that he has from campaigners like ourselves, that they take his claims seriously, as we do. I want to finish off with Margaret from the Campaign to Welcome Refugees, who's given our campaign enormous support throughout the last couple of weeks. Support, advice and just tremendous support all the way through. I can't really describe it as anything else. It's been magnificent all the way through. So Margaret Woods.
I just spoke to Charles before the demonstration started and asked him if there's anything he would like to say to the demonstration, and he said firstly to thank you all for being here today and also to tell people how much all the messages of support, the texts and the phone calls have meant to him in Colnbrook and his ability to keep going in the hope that he will get a decent resolution to this. The solidarity has meant very, very great deal to him, and he thanks you all very much. Colnbrook, like Dungavel, is a top security detention centre, like Category B prison. There are people in it who are kept in it 23 hours a day locked down, actually. Not Charles hasn't been, but there are people. And there are people in it in virtually indefinite detention that have been 2 and 3 years in detention. So that gives you some idea of the system we're talking about here. And the legal system through which Charles's case has wended in Britain was described recently, just before the Law Lords became the Supreme Court. It was described in a damning indictment by them as being unlike any other part of the justice system in Britain, and in fact Kafkaesque, that people just simply could not get through it to get belief and justice, that there is actually a culture of disbelief. When, in a democracy, did it become the fact that refugees fleeing from known hellholes, dictatorships where torture is constant, or war zones, or civil war zones, when did it suddenly become the case that people doing that had to go through some sort of quasi-criminalist type justice system where they had to prove that they were refugees, supposedly bringing all sorts of documents with them for this purpose, when they're actually fleeing in the most appalling circumstances, and as you've heard with Charles, having to escape from prison. How on earth could people possibly ever do that? And why should it be necessary when we see all over the world what is going on? The refugees who come to this city come from about 10 of the most appalling countries in terms of war and oppression in the world. Why is it necessary then for each individual to have to go through this enormous court case proving that they have had to flee from such a country, which anyone would want to escape in these circumstances? The job of journalists, it's always said, is to tell truth to power. A very, very dangerous thing, of course, especially when that power is a dictatorship, especially when there is torture, arbitrary arrest, lack of any kind of judicial process, basically executions by soldiers just on the spot, out of hand. It's very, very dangerous to tell truth to power. in a whole lot of the different countries of this world, is it not? And of course, Charles told truth to power in Cameroon. Other journalists have done that in Cameroon and in other countries. In fact, we have other journalists here who have had to flee after doing that, actually. And what has happened? Tortured, imprisoned, beaten, having to escape, disappeared for good, no known fate, either to their families or friends. That is what happens when you tell truth to power in some of these countries. But what happens when you tell truth to power in Britain? Well, Britain's a democracy, isn't it? Britain has a judicial system. Britain is a country which stands up for human rights. So what happened when Charles told truth to power in Britain? What happens when other refugees tell truth to power in Britain? They end up in Colnbrook, don't they? And they end up going back to the countries that are just waiting for them, to kill them, to torture them, to disappear them. That is actually what happens when you tell truth to power in Britain. And it's a very, very shocking thing. The power, of course, is over there. That's it, over there. And in London, where the Home Secretary makes the decision. Over here is the truth. Over here, what we say about what is happening around the world and what is happening to people who have to flee, and then what is happening to them in this country. This is the truth. That is the power which abuses democracy, makes a mockery of democracy, makes a mockery of justice, makes a mockery of human rights. That is the power over there. Over here, we have the truth. People like Charles in Colnbrook, and there are many others, they have the truth. The refugees sitting in this city, hoping desperately for some kind of haven, sanctuary, and final justice, they have the truth. And what has to happen now is the truth has to win. The truth has to overcome the power. And for that, we have to work very, very hard now. For Charles and for other people in this city, and for basically justice, humanity, democracy, for all of us. Because if there is no justice for Charles, no democracy for Charles, ultimately there will be no democracy for any of us, and no justice for any of us. At the end of the day, we all stand together on this. And that now depends largely on people like us. There are going to be more demonstrations. There are going to be the letter that you see there will appear in your email if you have it. Please sign on to the Glasgow Campaign to Welcome Refugees email. Get it sent out. Start sending it round your friends. Start getting it signed. And watch for the demonstrations. We hope that we're right, that the flight has been stopped today at least. But if we haven't got written confirmation, the lawyer doesn't have written confirmation, but we have to go into court anyway. We have to win the court case today. And then we have to win the next court case. But in the meanwhile, at any moment, the Home Secretary could recognise that an injustice has been done and a mistake has been made. She could do that at any moment now. And we have to persuade her that that is what needs to be done. Because a huge mistake has been made, a huge injustice has been done, and a very, very decent man in his own country and here could be sent back to his death now. You've heard Cab talking about what Charles has done in the city. He's worked for a whole lot of different things, and he's worked for justice in Cameroon and to show what's happening in Cameroon. But he has also worked among the whole population of the city here, the poorest people in the city, to help them, because that's what Charles is like. We do not want him sent back to Cameroon. We do not want him in Colnbrook. We want him out. We want him status. We want it recognised that he is a refugee and should be allowed to stay here, build his life here, and give to Scotland all the talent and energy and decency that he has. And we demand that now. We demand it for Charles, for the other journalists who flee here after the danger they have been put in, often again escaping similar governments. And we demand it for all the refugees, our friends, our brothers and sisters, our neighbours who have come here to this city. We demand it for all of them.